Thank you, Mr. Mead. Go ahead and take over.
Great, thank you. My name is Matthew Mead. First, it's a pleasure to be here and an honor to speak on our role in the industrial hemp industry, not just here in Idaho, but in the United States as a whole. Before I begin, I just want to say thanks to the Idaho Farm Bureau and Braden for inviting me to be here, and thank you all for your service to Idaho. I stood here in 2019, 2020, and 2021 working on behalf of getting the Farm Bill, or the Idaho State Hemp Program, approved in our state. I'm happy with how it's turned out. We now have some years of experience under our belt, being the largest buyer and processor of hemp fiber in the United States, to provide some thoughts, feedback, and recommendation on where we're at today and how we move forward. Before I dive into the fine print here, just a little bit about what we do. Hempitecture manufactures bio-based, carbon-negative, high-performing building materials. What is being passed around currently is an example of our bat insulation that Representative McCann is holding in her hand currently. That goes in between stud-framed walls. So if we were to peel off the drywall in this room here, underneath, in between these studs, would be insulation. Maybe you have memories of pulling itchy pink insulation out of a crawl space or an attic, the thing that ruins your day, maybe your week because you're itchy and irritated for the rest of the day. Well, our product is safe to touch, safe to handle. I promise I'm not ruining your day right now, or not yet at least. But the other product that the Secretary currently has in her hand is a natural fiber, non-woven material. This is made from 80% hemp fiber. We sell this product for use in the built environment, but also this has use in other industries like automotive. That material could be treated with a resin, thermoformed and set into automotive composite materials. We are currently in the process of setting up a second manufacturing plant in eastern Tennessee, where there is a large OEM automotive industry there. The other product that we have is a continuous insulation that goes on the exterior of your home. At the end of the day, all of our products are one-to-one replacements for conventional insulation products that you'd buy at Home Depot, except ours start with the seed, are turned into fiber by friends like Tristan, who cultivate this hemp fiber, convert it into fiber, and we purchase it and convert it in our facility. So all of our products, everything that you're seeing and touching here, is proudly manufactured in Jerome, Idaho. We have a state-of-the-art non-woven manufacturing facility that is built off of European technology that we've custom designed to produce high-performing carbon-negative materials. Actually, our facility is powered by renewable energy, so when you take a life cycle analysis of our products, they're actually carbon-negative. They're capturing more carbon dioxide and storing it in the material. We source our fiber from Idaho and Montana. Those are our two primary locations that we source our raw material from. Our business is creating a real and quantifiable impact for folks in the communities in which we are located in. Today, we have 10 full-time manufacturing jobs in Jerome. In 2025, we'll be adding a second shift and we'll be expanding to 15 full-time jobs. We really believe in paying a fair and livable wage for our employees, so our average employee is paid 162% over Idaho minimum wage. I will also say that this photo was taken when we won a Global Innovation Award through the Non-Woven Trade Association in North America for our Innovation Plant Panel, which is our rigid continuous hemp fiber insulation. So let's take a look here a little bit at the numbers. In 2024, Hempitecture purchased and converted nearly 1 million pounds of hemp fiber. This is quite a significant amount of hemp fiber. In 2024, about 42% of that was grown in Idaho. The rest of that was sourced from Montana and Canada. In 2023, that number was very, very different. We were sourcing almost entirely from Montana and Canada. What changed between 2023 and 2024? Well, that was the development of Tristan Sponsoler's facility near Rexburg, Idaho hemp processors. His facility single-handedly has created the opportunity for Idaho farmers to create an agricultural commodity that Hempitecture can buy, utilize, and convert into our high-performance building materials. We no longer actually really even source from Canada with the resulting facility and product that we can get from from Tristan's facility, which has a great quality. The fiber quality that we receive from Idaho meets or exceeds the quality of fiber that we've been purchasing from Canada, and they did not prohibit the cultivation of industrial hemp. These companies have been doing this for many, many years. One thing that I'll also point out here in terms of the numbers, as our business grows and scales and we increase our operational efficiency, we provide a direct, tangible benefit to farmers. In 2023, we produced 1,940 finished pallets of product out of our Jerome facility. In 2024, we produced 2,582 pallets. So that's an operational increase, which means we're buying more hemp fiber, which benefits our rural communities and our farming partners who are processing and growing the industrial hemp. So I really want to address something head on here. I started Hempitecture as a concept when I was an architecture student in 2013. I stood on stage at my college's business plan competition, and I presented the vision for Hempitecture. I was laughed at in front of 250 people. I was told, you are trying to build houses out of a Schedule I substance. And I said, well, yes, today it is a Schedule I substance, but in 5 years' time, it's not going to be. We're the only industrialized nation on the planet that bans the production of industrial hemp. Sure enough, 2018, federal farm bill came through that legalized industrial hemp and left it to states to create legislation that fits their own goals following USDA and Farm Bill guidelines. Where I truly believe Idaho's hemp opportunity is in fiber and grain. All the materials that you've just handled are from fiber varieties of industrial hemp. Fiber varieties of industrial hemp have two output materials, bast fiber and hurd, as Mr. Sponsler mentioned before. We take this bast fiber and we convert it into our products. This is a totally different segment than CBD, and it needs to be treated differently. There is a conflation that goes on that is very understandable. We have a unique history with industrial hemp in the United States. It was once an agricultural commodity that was mandated to grow to support war efforts. Despite many years of prohibition, it came back in 2018, and we've kind of lost our way with understanding what industrial hemp is and what it isn't. What Mr. Sponsler grows and what we use to convert into building materials is grown on large-scale acreage, under pivots, irrigated. What CBD is small, cultivated bushes with the genetic purpose of producing flowers. The genetic purpose of our crop is to produce fiber and hurd. So with this experience in Idaho and nationwide, as we sell our products from coast to coast, we have some recommendations and ideas for moving forward. First off, I want to say working with the Idaho Department of Agriculture has been tremendous. They're really great people to work with. They've created a program that, for the most part, is really streamlined. I'm now very used to getting my thick fingers fingerprinted every year, so I got over that after year 2, but it's just part of what we have to do to carry these licenses, so we understand. But I think we really need to put our farmers first here. We need to support farmers in fiber and grain. Growing any crop presents a risk, presents a challenge. Industrial hemp is incredibly risky when you consider that 0.3% or more THC can result in your crop getting destroyed. Just to put this in orders of magnitude, 0.3% is the threshold we've set in Idaho, which is more strict than federal. What is bought for recreational or psychoactive purposes doesn't begin until 20%. So we are a massive magnitude under anything that could be viewed as a threat or being misconstrued to be used recreationally. We really believe that, Montana has a great source or method, rather, for mitigation or remediation, as it's been referred to. This is called decortication. Mr. Sponsler's plant is a decortication plant. What this does is it allows farmers to, even if they test hot, to remediate through decortication. There's no risk of THC products going anywhere. The material that we get is still usable, so the farmers can still monetize, Hempitecture can still buy, and we really reduce the risk for the farmers. Second, we need to stop the conflation. Not all industrial hemp is the same. I truly wish, as someone in the industrial hemp industry since 2013, we had a better way to classify fiber hemp versus grain hemp versus CBD hemp. It's all under this same umbrella, but there's different genetic profiles under this umbrella that are difficult to understand, and rightfully so. Industrial hemp should not be conflated with cannabis for recreational purpose. They're grown entirely differently, the genetic profiles are entirely different, and we don't believe that all hemp should be treated equal. Maybe it's appropriate to regulate some segments of industrial hemp more so than others. And what we're seeing now is that segments like CBD are placing an undue burden on what we believe is a true agricultural opportunity in fiber for products like ours and grain for food. We need to support infrastructure. The processing facility in Rexburg that Mr. Sponsler owns is the only processing facility in the state of Idaho. Their success is literally carrying the success of the entire industrial hemp industry in Idaho. If farmers do not have a place to convert their crop into fiber and hurd, they cannot monetize it. Their success is our success, and it's also the success of industrial hemp in Idaho. Fourth, we need to continue to support research. Hempitecture has been very gracious to be the beneficiary of support within Idaho through the Idaho Global Entrepreneurial Mission, or iGEM program. In September of 2023, funding for that program was cut, which was a massive loss to our competitive edge in research and development. We had 5 PhD students at University of Idaho working on various projects. With the funding cut, those projects were left unfinished, and we do not have the budget ourselves to continue and follow up those projects. Last, we need to keep regulation fair and current. We need to follow USDA guidelines as they're continually evolving. We need to not create unnecessary red tape. Idaho touts itself as the least regulated state in the country, yet we have one of the most regulated industrial hemp programs in the country. We feel that this should be applied unilaterally across all segments, and industrial hemp should be treated the same. With that, I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mead. Any questions? Representative Mathias.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Mead. Mr. Mead, you had a slide 4 or 5 slides back that had a pie chart.
Yes.
About where you're sourcing from. Idaho, I think, was at 42%. And I thought of a question, and I kind of put it aside until your final slide where you talked about crop destruction and the THC limits. I'm curious if you could just give us a sense of how much fewer crop would be destroyed and how much more crop would you have access to if the percentage was raised to, say, 0.4 or 0.7 or 0.8. Could you give us a sense of how much more we'd be looking at?
Mr. Mead.
Thank you for the question, Representative. That is a great question. That is something that I would have a difficult time answering, not knowing the exact statistics of how many crops had to go through remediation. I think the fundamental challenge here, however, is that the remediation guidelines really are not pertaining to fiber or grain. They're designed around CBD, which has a totally different genetic profile. So I think there could be an allowance for fiber and grain cultivars. You're never going to grow fiber and grain and then try and convert that into CBD. It's just a different genetic profile. So I think that there should be some latitude for folks that are growing fiber and grain crops. Whereas if I were looking at CBD, I would think maintaining a very hard and fast parameter on CBD cultivation and the THC limits makes a lot of sense. As Tristan mentioned, THC can be produced as a stress response by a plant. So it could be, maybe 0%, 1%, or sorry, 0.1%, 0.2%. All of a sudden, a drought occurs. No rain happens. Irrigation has a failure. As a stress response to that, the crop may produce THC. That's an act of God. That is not an act of the farmer. That is just Mother Nature. Now, industrial hemp for fiber varieties are being engineered to have different stress responses that are not THC, but I do think it's important to keep in mind the orders of magnitude. 0.3% is absolutely negligible when you consider the bare minimum psychoactive quantity of THC is 20%. Thank you.
Representative McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. It's very interesting. I wondered if, when we're looking at the research, and I might have missed what you said, but when was the funding cut for additional research?
It was in
Mr.
August
Mead?
or September. August or September of 2024.
Okay, so recently.
Follow up?
A follow-up comment, I guess. I guess we really do need to take a look at that, and I'll ask some of my JFAC friends about that. But in addition, I do think that what I'm hearing is that, we've got this started, and we see that we may need to make some adjustments, and I'm perfectly happy to sit down with some of you folks and look at what would make sense. And I noticed in the back of the room, I just wanted to call attention to former Representative Carolyn Troy, who worked diligently and arduously to get this bill passed. So I know we all owe her thanks, and I think this could be, a bigger industry if we could loosen up some things for you all and to try to help you make this, a crop that we, again, in Idaho can be proud of and put it up there that we're our first in the nation, second in the nation, whatever it is. But I thank you guys that you guys are on the cutting edge, and that's how we grow, and the economics for Idaho, I think, could be really much larger. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I didn't catch a question. If you want to address that, you can.
If I may, Representative McCann, thank you for the thoughtful remarks. In regards to the iGEM program, we were actually at the tail end of our funding cycle, so it only cut our project short till the end of the fiscal year. However, it did leave essentially 3 years of work that was culminating in that final quarter of 2024, really hanging in midair, which was a difficult pill for a startup to swallow. And I would like to echo your sentiments. Ms. Carolyn Troy and I spent a lot of time on the phone in 2019, 2020, and 2021, so appreciative of the efforts of everyone who brought the industrial hemp bills forward. And then last, I would just echo that, yes, I think there's a balance between supporting research and development, supporting farmers to get industrial hemp maybe more mainstream in Idaho. I don't think it's going to work for every farmer, and I don't think it needs to, but I think supporting the businesses that are in this industry today, like Tristan, understanding that there's such a critical part of the supply chain will help this become a more viable economic opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Levitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for a question. I really appreciate you coming here. And the question I have is, I have the samples sitting here in front of me. What is the R value for these samples? Is it relatively similar to what we'd have with traditional insulation and things like that?
Mr. Mead.
Thank you, Representative Levitt. Great question. Yes, our values are very comparable to conventional insulation materials. For the bat insulation, it's R 3.69 per inch. The board insulation is R 3.25 per inch. So we sell that in a 1-inch form and then a 2-inch form, adding up to R 6.5 per inch. So really competitive. Usually the follow-up question there, and I'll get ahead of it, is what is the cost? It costs about 10 to 20% more expensive than mineral fiber insulation today, and about 30 to 40% more expensive than fiberglass. We certainly recognize that there's a price premium to our product today. However, we have a path to parity. Part of that path to parity is the growth and scale of the industrial hemp agricultural economy. As it's grown in wider scale, as processing achieves more throughput, and we lower our overheads and costs of goods, we can certainly meet the incumbent products on the market and really have something that is a one-to-one comparison, not just in terms of price, but in terms of performance as well.
Follow up.
Follow up, please. My follow-up question would be about a different product. I'm not sure if you guys are involved in it, but I'm just curious about like hempcrete. It's something I've heard about. Is it something that you guys are also interested in expanding on?
Mr. Mead.
Yes, thank you, Representative Levitt, for the great question. When I stood on stage in 2013 and presented the initial concept of Hempitecture and was made a bit of a mockery of, it was about the use of hempcrete, which uses the inner wooden core of limestone or hemp stalk and limestone binder, which we actually also source from Idaho in Mead City. We sell that product today. We are a big player in the industrial hempcrete space, and that's really where the foundation origin story of Hempitecture began. We transitioned to more of a manufacturing model with our factory located in the facility you see here on the photo to produce one-to-one replacement products. Hempcrete's a wonderful building material, 100% fireproof, carbon negative. However, it is a little outside of the conventional norm of how buildings are built today. So hemp wool, plant panel, the products that you see here are easily substituted with what you might buy at Home Depot, which ultimately provides a benefit to farmers in the advantage of scale. It's a more scalable product.
Thank you.
Yep. Representative Raymond.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Mead, thank you very much for your presentation. This question may not be, answer if you can, but I'm curious, maybe the director knows, but remediation in Idaho, are those guidelines found in rule or in statute?
Mr. Mead.
Thank you, Representative Raymond. I could not answer that with certainty. I'm happy to defer to Director Tewalt. What I do know, however, is that the remediation methods mostly are based off of the premise of industrial hemp for CBD. That speaks to the conflation of different varieties of industrial hemp. So I believe that depending on the variety of industrial hemp, whether it's fiber, grain, or CBD, there should be appropriate and corresponding destruction or remediation methods per that segment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director, do you want to come answer our question real quick? Thank you.
Again, for the record, Chanel T-Wall, ISDA. Mr. Chairman, Representative Raymond, yes, so they live in rule and a protocol. So there are 3 protocols that are part of Idaho State Plan: laboratory analysis, sampling, which tells you how ISDA is going to do the job of cutting off the first 5 inches of the plant, and then also remediation and disposal. Those 3 protocols are required by USDA. They're very prescriptive, they're very onerous, and there's not a lot of wiggle room. They also have to be done on property. So that has come up a couple times, and mostly to do with a different kind of industry than we have in Idaho.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Representative Sauter.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Mead, I'm from North Idaho, so it's trees up there, although we do have some thousands of acres of barley and other product up in the Kootenai Valley. I'm just curious about the motivation to grow the hemp product versus, I presume, fertile area that could also grow other, barley or alfalfa. What is it that drives our farmers to grow the product that you need for your manufacturing?
Mr. Mead.
Thank you, Representative Sauter, for the question. I think that there are a few compelling avenues towards industrial hemp, one of which is industrial hemp is a great remediation crop. It can improve depleted soil quality by fixing nitrogen content. The root structure of industrial hemp, particularly for fiber and grain, is incredibly robust. It can go down feet, breaking up compacted loam soils, compacted clay, helping aerate the soil. We are actually involved with a project being administrated by Oregon State University that is looking at industrial hemp as a rotational cropping tool in potato cropping systems. So I think that there's a great advantage in play here for industrial hemp to maybe not be a staple crop, although for some it certainly can and will be, but also as a rotational crop. I think other farmers in the room here could speak to this more than I could as well. And you'll hear more from them here momentarily. But I think it's also the interest in doing something new, something different, and having a new tool in the tool belt to diversify away from the main staple crops in which you may have grown previously.
Representative Achilles.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mead, it's hard to do this as a startup. I mean, you're creating the whole value chain here from the input to the market. So we've talked a lot about the growing, but what does the distribution side look like downstream from your facility? How big is the market? What's the opportunity? What's the TAM? Sort of how do you build that out?
Mr. Mead.
Oh boy. Thank you, Representative. The downstream market, we believe, is absolutely growing, and it's becoming a really compelling segment in the U.S. market. Let me just first kind of address how we got here. In 2022, we raised about $5 million from private investors, which helped us realize the facility in which we are located today. We really set out on that fundraise with a vision of creating the first hemp insulation manufacturing plant in the United States. We looked into many different states, actually: Oregon, Washington, California, Nevada, Utah, and Montana. We ultimately arrived in Idaho because A, I live here and I love it here, but B, because we thought that there was a great agricultural opportunity for industrial hemp in Idaho. We commercialized our first product, hemp wool bat insulation. And 2023 was really a year of kind of trials and tribulations in A, successfully producing it, and B, successfully getting it into market. 2024 was our first full year of complete unencumbered operation. We increased our output 86% and grew our sales about 82% year over year. We are occupying a space in the built environment that is characterized by both high performance but carbon negative. As proved through life cycle analyses with University of Idaho, all of our products are carbon negative, so they can qualify for carbon credits, which can offset that price premium that today we have on our product. Looking forward, we, just as of this morning, were awarded $1 million from the Tennessee Department of Agriculture to set up a manufacturing plant in eastern Tennessee. We received $8.4 million through the Department of Energy's Manufacturing, Energy, and Supply Chain to also support that Tennessee facility build-out. So we're being supported by both state and federal resources to grow and scale our solution. We're hoping that in 2025, the private sector will bring financing and capital to meet the state and federal funding we've received to expand our production technology to eastern Tennessee, and also further expand our production capabilities here in Idaho to have an East Coast and West Coast manufacturing hub.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Nelson.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Mead, first, thank you for the wisdom to land your plant in my community. It's great to have you. It doesn't take long listening to this that common sense, maybe the legislature set the THC requirement just a skosh low. Would you just flesh out, I wasn't involved in any of that, of possibly why we landed at 0.3, and if there would be any issues if we bump that up 1%, if you would, and follow the feds.
Mr. Mead, I'm interested to see how you're going to state this. Go ahead.
Loaded question.
Thank you for the thoughtful question, Representative Nelson. It's a pleasure and a joy to be located in your community. I think when we think about THC levels, it's really about putting farmers first. Putting farmers first in industrial hemp means providing them the latitude to successfully monetize a crop that poses no health or social risk in terms of the THC quantity. Again, orders of magnitude. 0.3% is absolutely negligible. Going up 0.7% from 0.3% is absolutely negligible. There is virtually no path towards harm or ushering in unintended consequences through specifically allowing fiber varieties and grain varieties to have a 1% THC threshold and to be in line with federal standards and USDA standards.
Great. Thank you very much. Doesn't look like we have any other questions for you, so we thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Yep.